Сайн байцгаана уу хүн төлөгчтэй. Өнөөдөр манай de facto нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Канадын Нью Брансвик мужийн ерөнхий шүүгч эрхэм Марк Ричард оролцож байна.
Марк Ричард Канадын Нью Брансвик мужийн ерөнхий шүүгч Монголын их сургуулийг 1980-1983 мөн Лондоны эдийн засаг улс төрийн шинжилгээ ухааны их сургуулийг 1984 онд төгссөн. Хатан хааны тэтмийн прокурор, хуулийн фирмд мэтгэлцээний зөвлөх, Канадын барын нийгэмлэг, Нью Брансвикийн хуулийн нийгэмлэгийн үндэсний болон мужийн хэд хэдэн хороод ажлын хэсэг, зөвлөх багт хуульчийн хувьд орж ажилласан ба энэ хоёр байгууллагын ерөнхийлөгчөөр сонгогдсон ажиллаж байсан. 2002 онд хатан хааны зөвлөх, 2003 онд Нью Брансвикийн давж заалгах шүүхийн шүүгчээр томилогдож байсан. 2004 онд Канадын дээд шатны шүүхийн шүүгчдийн холбооны удирдах зөвлөлийн гишүүн, 2015 онд энэ холбооны ерөнхийлөгчөөр сонгогдсон.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So tell us about the project you do in Mongolia. This is your second visit, isn't it?
This is my second visit to Mongolia, yes. This is a project that was sought by the General Judicial Council of Mongolia. They applied to the Canadian Embassy here for a small short-term project that ends at the end of this month, unfortunately. So one of the things that they wanted was to understand and learn the Canadian system and to see if there was anything to borrow from our system in order to try to streamline their processes and perhaps do things a little different and in a way that might improve confidence of the public in the administration of justice. So the Canadian government agreed to the project, and we began with a study visit by a delegation from the Judicial Council and from the Judicial Discipline Council as well. They came to Ottawa in October, spent a week. We introduced them to our systems, our processes. They had a very, very busy week of learning the Canadian system. In the aftermath of that, we sort of identified the areas where we might want to focus on for the short-term project. And a colleague of mine, Chief Justice Mary Moreau from the province of Alberta, and myself and a representative of the Federal Judicial Affairs were here at the end of January, early February. We began our discussions, left here expecting the two working groups to develop these tools, what I call it, for judges in the area of ethics and conduct, and with a view of coming back here and perhaps continuing the work. But to our astonishment, the Judicial Council and the Discipline Council did so much work that they almost completed the work. So by the time we came here, we were very impressed with the work that had been done. There's still some refining to do. We'll continue that. But we have found a lot of enthusiasm here by both of these groups.
Now, how many people have visited Canada?
I think there were 8.
8.
I think there were 8.
From this General Council of Judicial?
The General Judicial Council and the Discipline Committee as well.
Discipline Committee.
Yeah, there were, I believe there were 4 from each.
Well, so by now you are a bit quite familiar with our judicial system. Compare it with your system. Do you find anything that surprises you, or you think, or need to correct or something?
Well, it's not for me to be, telling Mongolia what to do. The best we can do is tell them how we do things in Canada, and the people in the positions of authority at the council or the discipline committee can borrow if they wish or modify. But I did see some differences. Obviously, we have a different system of justice. Yours is a civil system. Ours is a common law system. For you, everything is codified. For us, there's a judge-made law, case by case. So that is very different, but that's not unusual. I've certainly worked in other countries with civil law system. In the area that we've been working on, ethics, particularly ethics, the ethics for a judge are the same in Mongolia as they are in Canada, or they should be the same. Okay. They should be the same.
Do we have this ethics conduct?
Well, I think that what happened in Mongolia is there used to be a code of ethics for judges, and then when your parliament passed the law on courts in 2021, they codified the ethical principles in the law, particularly Section 50. They have a list of prohibitions. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Whether you have it in a code or have it in the law, it's basically the same thing. But what is missing, or what I thought was missing, and what I recommended to the General Counsel, is sort of explanations for judges as to what all of those provisions mean. So we in Canada have what we call principles of ethics, and it sets out the ethical principles, and then it has a series of commentaries to explain what they mean. And we thought this would be a good tool for Mongolian judges to have this. So they'd have this little booklet. It would set out all of the prohibitions, what they're supposed to do, not supposed to do, and then followed by commentaries explaining the details of this.
There is not?
There is not, but there's going to be soon.
I see. Well, ethics, this is something that the public at this moment of our judges, many cases illustrate that. People are not very highest level of opinion. Probably you have also seen, you have been probably some translated to you some cases here, and people have not of a great impression of our judges. There are particular cases. There were some criminally even charged, connected. One even, they say, suicide in prison. And the other, there are many, several cases where people are really disappointed. So how to restore this public opinion? What is to be made in our judicial system so that people a little bit more respectfully approach?
Well, that's another component of our project. It's good that you would ask that. In every country these days around the world, people have a general dissatisfaction over things. COVID has been very difficult on everyone. There's a lot of bad feelings, sentiments, malaise that sets in, and nobody's immune to that. And maybe that contributes to some degree. But one thing that we have found in our country that helps greatly enhance public confidence is better communication with the public through the media. So another component of our project, beyond the ethics, has been communications. And we have discussed, we invited media personnel people to our first time we were here, to our first mission. We had a meeting with a group of reporters. This time as well, I think on Monday there were reporters. We invited reporters to attend a conference on the rule of law on Wednesday here. Many attended. And I think we heard from the reporters some of their frustrations. And so one of the things that we've suggested to both the General Counsel and the Discipline Committee is that they create a media strategy, a public communication strategy, so that they can have a better understanding of the role of the press, and the press can in turn have a better understanding of the role of these two committees, so that the dialogue can take place between the two. And we try to accommodate, because, you know, our Supreme Court has recognized a long time ago that in order for public confidence to be maintained, you need an open court. You need proper reporting. The public needs to know what's going on, and the public needs to understand what's going on. So in Canada, we call it the open court principle. And one thing that I've seen here, and one of the frustrations expressed by the journalists, were that the courtrooms are small. There's no place for the journalists to sit in the courtroom. In fact, in some courtrooms, there's no seats at all. Yesterday, we went for a visit of district courts, district criminal courts, and also visited civil court.
And the rooms?
Their rooms were small.
Small.
Some of the rooms were very small.
Do you regulate that by law somehow in Nью Брансвik or Canada, so that it is to be public, so that it has a space for public? In Canada, there is accommodation made for the press in every courtroom. Every courtroom.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that there is a specific press space, but there's always enough seats for the press to be able to attend in every courtroom.
Court in Canada, is it always open?
It's always open, with some very, very minor exceptions.
Okay, like?
Well, if testimony is going to be given that would identify a police informant, for example, that will be that might be closed.
Say again.
A police informant, somebody who gives information to the police, confidential informant. And if there's going to be some argument made that might reveal the identity of the informant, that may be closed. And there's probably also state secret cases. Those are very, very rare. I mean, in Canada, 99% of the cases plus are open court.
Exactly. Here is vice versa. Almost everything is closed.
Yes.
And even now, the Development Bank of Mongolia criminal cases, even 80 who may be regarded as potentially accused, yes. With 80 accused people, case now, they say that now we will discuss it in a closed door. And that's killing just our confidence.
Yes.
We demand them be open. This is a state public money, this Development Bank of Mongolia money, who everybody, this 80 people, they have been misusing. They was using not in that right directions, they got borrowed. And yet, they said, no, we will make it close. How to switch that on?
Well, of course, I can't comment on a specific case. You wouldn't expect me to in any event, I'm sure. But I will say this. I think that and I don't know the specifics as to why this is closed or anything like that, so I do not interpret any comment that I make regarding the specific case. But I will say that I am a strong believer in the open court principle. We all are in Canada. Our Supreme Court has said that that is a fundamental a right that's part of freedom of the press, and that's a right that's guaranteed in our Constitution. And when sometimes judges close the courts, the press makes an application, and usually they're successful, but it's very rare that a judge will close a court. Very, very rare.
Well, that's one of the cases where we would like very much things changing. So you and me we've been talking about ethics beforehand, in ethics code, whatever, which now you said that it's in our, it was before separate code, then now it is in the law. In the law. I don't understand that practicality of all this.
Well, there is no great practical difference. It's just that the law, of course, is a code, and it says you can't do this, 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 and this. But then you say, okay, well, what does that really mean? What's the specifics of that? And for example, in our ethical principles, it says that a judge should, not judge a case if there's a conflict of interest. Well, okay, everybody agrees with that, but what exactly is a conflict of interest? Of course, if it's your brother who is one of the parties, it's a conflict of interest, right?
Yes.
If it's a cousin, it's probably a conflict of interest. If it's a friend of your cousin, well, I don't know.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So in ethics, there's a lot of gray. It's not all black and white.
Yes.
So that's why if the General Council is able to finalize this guidebook for judges, it will help a lot in their decision making. And it should and not just for the judges. This booklet should be made available to the public as well, so the public the public knows what's expected
That's what
of
we
judges.
would expect,
Absolutely.
which is not the case.
Well, the book doesn't exist yet. It should be the case because, as I said, that's the second part of our project has been to work with them to create a communication strategy, a liaison.
Please do it. That's what we are missing. Whether it is in the law or in separate code, still you can make a brochure where everybody understands, including the public.
And
the public know that.
It should be on the website. Anybody can go read it.
You see, we talked about the court system to be open, court process itself. How often or how should the judge himself, at different level, to be open for public?
Well, what should be open to the public is the evidentiary part of the court system. Of course, when the judge goes in the back room and deliberates, that's not open to the public anywhere. And nobody would expect that.
Sure.
But when the judge comes back and delivers a decision, that should be open to the public. It certainly should be open to the press because the press represents the public.
You should tell our system that. But the other thing is prosecutor. It should be also their function should be also open, right?
What the prosecutor does in the courtroom certainly should be open to the public.
Yes.
It is in our country in any event.
Yes.
Your system is very different than ours in criminal law, so I can't make a direct comparison to the role of the prosecutor here and the role of the prosecutor home. We have a very adversarial system. The prosecutor's job is to present the evidence in open court, whereas here a lot of it is done ahead of time through investigations, and I understand a lot of it is in writing. So it's different for us.
I mean, this makes the system even less efficient.
Well, I'm not sure about efficiency, but again, I don't know why the system would not want to be more open to the public. I don't understand why that wouldn't be, the goal of everybody. I mean, the past is the past. We've got to move on. And you asked me, how do we improve public confidence? And I'm saying that one of the ways for the Mongolian justice system to improve public confidence is greater transparency. It's greater transparency. Because the more people see the judges at work, the more people understand what's at play.
The other thing, maybe we have a so-called anti-corruption agency, then prosecutor, then police. Each of them have a right to investigate. How does your system work in this case?
Well, in our system, the police investigate, and when the police form a reasonable and probable grounds in their mind that a person has committed a crime, in our province, they give a file to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor looks at the file and says, is there a reasonable chance here, if I prosecute this, that there will be a conviction? If the answer is yes, the prosecutor will approve a charge, and the charge will then be laid in court, we call it. It'll be presented to the judge. The defendant will be called to answer to the charge, and he'll be asked, do you plead guilty or not guilty? A large percent of people plead guilty. They recognize what they've done, and then they're sentenced. Those who plead not guilty, then that triggers a trial. And at the trial, there's a presumption of innocence. The prosecutor has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that
so you don't have a separate institute like anti-corruption agency?
No.
Okay. What is the reason behind all this institution?
I can't
You
really.
see, when we became a member of UNCAC, that is Convention, Anti-Corruption Convention, they advised to create the separate entity.
A separate entity, I see.
To proceed things faster.
Yes.
Because it's unlike criminal things, it's
Perhaps,
the
yes.
misuse of public positions.
But we would have, I mean, if there was a corruption case in our country, it would be investigated probably by the RCMP or by the police. And it would be prosecuted, no question about that.
Here, I think even less prosecuted, because they go, for example, some 200 files go to prosecutor, and instead of going to judge, many of them comes back and said that it is not regarded as criminal. So the prosecutor kind of making final decision before even judge. They just get back the file. And that makes people frustrated,
I see.
don't believing in the power. So when justice is not there, where is justice not there? And when high-ranking people keep talking and not arrested, yet they have been done. We have this so-called immunity. For example, our parliament members have immunity. As we speak of the
criminal immunity?
Yes, from everything.
From everything. Oh.
And they cannot arrest.
That's not for us.
They can investigate.
That's not like that for us.
But that's the whole thing. Sometimes I think that people are going there to the politics to have that right, having special immunity.
Yeah.
So that's a concern of.
Well, that would be something that is foreign to the Canadian system. I mean, if a member of Parliament commits a crime, they're going to be prosecuted.
So please advise our people that.
Well, I'm a judge. I advise judges, but and all I can do is tell you what we do in Canada. I'm not here to.
I understand. The other thing, at anybody's request, any court cases, even the past 10, 20 years ago, can one read that recording now in Canada?
Yes. Well, not every, in the last 10, 20 years we've been recording our cases. Not everything is typed out. If there's no appeal, there is no transcript, but the recording is kept. Okay. And somebody can apply to get a copy of the recording, yes.
Even you can have a copy of the recording?
You can get a copy of the recording in most cases. There might be some reasons why some of it would not be given, but most of it, the answer is yes.
See how much the systems are different.
Yes.
Here they try to make in a way that nothing happened. That's the whole thing, the essence of the situation today.
Well, it goes back to the work that we're trying to do to promote an open court principle, to promote a dialogue. I think there needs to be a high-level dialogue between the media and the courts, and if necessary, I guess, between the media and the executive branch of government to try to, if there's a will to change things, if there's a desire to enhance public confidence, the open court principle is the way to go.
Do you have a version of our disciplinary committee?
Of your the disciplinary committee, you mean its process?
In Mongolia, this disciplinary committee gets complaints from people.
Oh yes.
And they kind of...
Oh, do we have a version of that in Canada? Oh, yes. In fact, I'm on the conduct committee of the Canadian Judicial Council.
You call it conduct committee.
Conduct committee.
We have a disciplinary committee.
Yes, that's the group we've been working with.
Yes, conduct committee in Canada, our disciplinary committee. How do you find their job? The system, how does it work? In Mongolia.
Well, I haven't really looked at the process in Mongolia because we've not been dealing with that part of it. But my understanding of it is the process is not a bad one. If a complaint comes in, it is investigated and there's a decision that's made. We have been working with the discipline committee as with the general counsel to have, again, a better communication strategy and so that their decisions are communicated.
What kind of penalty, punishment, whatever, you call it, or
Yeah.
Your conduct committee can give to your lawyers?
To our judges?
Yes, judges,
Currently in Canada, the only thing that the conduct committee, or the Canadian Judicial Council, but the conduct committee administers it. The only thing the Canadian Judicial Council can do is recommend for a judge to be removed or not.
Uh-huh.
Now that's going to hopefully change soon. There's a bill before our Parliament that should give us the authority to
remove.
Removal's already there, but to impose other sanctions against the judge.
For example,
reprimands, public reprimands.
What is that?
A reprimand,
yes.
Just denouncing that what the judge did was wrong, but say, okay, don't do it again. Your discipline committee has that power.
Mm-hmm.
Your discipline committee has the power to suspend a judge. We don't have that at this point. We could also, in some instances, once the new law is there, make sure that a judge agrees to attend certain courses or take some training. And so that's going to be a good power for us to have once the bill passes Parliament.
What was in your case, in Brunswick, for example, was a case where a judge was removed?
Was removed?
Yeah.
We had a case in New Brunswick several years ago where a judge was, our province, as I said, is a bilingual province.
Yes.
And part of the French community is known as the Acadian community. The ancestors came from France and they settled in a place called Acadia. And way back in the 1700s, 1755, many of the British came in and they put a lot of the men on boats and they shipped them down to Louisiana, and they really tried to get rid of the Acadian community. But the community survived. I'm an Acadian person myself. And so the Acadian community is part of our province. It's got a peninsula that's called the Acadian Peninsula. And there was a judge who was sitting there. And one day she came into the courtroom and she was deciding a case, and she went on just a rage, a tirade of, I don't believe this, I'm living here in this community and I think my neighbors to the left and my neighbors to the right, they're all thieves and cheats. And well, when the press got wind of that, they said, this person can't be a judge. If she thinks that all of the Acadian community is are thieves, you can't be impartial.
Yes.
So there was a complaint that was made to the Judicial Council, and it eventually led to the removal of the judge.
She has not anymore.
She has no longer been a judge. Yeah, she's not a judge anymore.
When you take away that title, is it what is taken? In Japan, for example, they have a badge with the number.
Oh,
yeah.
They lose their robe. But they can't.
Not in the physical sense.
They also lose their salary. They lose, if they don't have an accumulated pension, they could lose their pension. And of course, there's a disgrace involved with it, right? To be removed from the bench.
It will not be hired by anybody else.
Well, they can go back to practicing law, but there's...
final question about salary.
Mm-hmm.
Salary for judges to be also decent, so that these people are not dependent on people who has money.
Yes.
If somebody has a lot of money and they can impact on anybody.
Yes.
So what do you do in that regard?
Well, in Canada, we believe that one of the conditions of an independent judiciary is a judiciary that has financial security. In other words, it's well paid.
Mm-hmm.
And our Supreme Court said many years ago that it should not be the government that looks at our salary by itself. That there should be every 4 year an independent commission that fixes judges' salaries.
Mm-hmm.
So every 4 years, there's a commission that's put together, a representative from government, a representative from the judges, and they pick somebody to chair.
Mm-hmm.
And that commission will, look at the evidence, look how lawyers are getting paid, and what's a fair amount, and they will recommend to the government. Now, the government has the final say because they're the ones who know.
Who finances?
Yeah, they're the ones who finances.
Yes.
But the expectation is that unless the government has a really good reason, it should follow the recommendations of the commission.
Usually, does it cover inflation, or what is the general trend of increasing?
We have that built into our system. So we have every 4 years. It covers sort of the base pay, and then every year after that, there's an adjustment. For us, we call it the industrial aggregate average, but it's an adjustment for.
Does it depend on the age or term of work?
No, for us, all judges are paid the same at the federal level, and in each province, they're paid in accordance with the province.
Being a judge at the federal level, can you have a private practice?
No, no. And in fact, our Judges Act says that you can't do anything else but be a judge. That's all you can do. You can't work at anything else. You're a judge 24/7.
Advocates are different.
Are they?
Advocates in your country.
Well, advocates in our country, lawyers are lawyers. So lawyers are both advocates and notaries.
And they cannot do any business?
Oh no, they can do what they want.
Okay.
Oh yeah, they can do what they
advocates.
Want. Yeah, advocates
judges
can do what they
not.
judges no.
Well, okay. Well, that's it's a big issue.
Of
cannot
course,
cover at once.
No, of course not. But I'm really hopeful that through dialogue of the type that we've been trying to promote with the media and the courts. And hopefully that will eventually may bring the executive branch of government into the conversation, that things will improve here. Because I sense a desire. I mean, I was taken by the enthusiasm of the members of the Judicial Council, of the Discipline Committee. These people want to make a difference. They really want to make a difference.
I'm glad to hear
There's
that.
a lot of enthusiasm.
Plus, there's no other choice. Now, it is at such a level that they're better to do that.
But they want to do it. So
Very good.
So let's have that dialogue and let's try to make a difference together. That's what I hope happens anyway.
Let them happen.
And I hope to come back. I really love your country.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
За хүн үзэгчтэй өнөөдөр манай de facto нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор яг одоо та бидний хүссэн хүлээгээд байгаа энэ хуулийн шүүхийн системийг өөрчлөх талаар Монголд ажиллаж байгаа. Энэ Канадын их туршлагатай хүн байгаа. Нью Брансвик гэж мужийн одоо ахлах шүүгч юм да. Марк, Ричард гэж хүнтэй ярилцлаа. Баярлалаа.